Important feature of SharePoint. Like, uh, so now we have one thing which we have to learn is first thing is designer. So what is a SharePoint designer? So without coding, how can we design something in SharePoint, right? It can be a page, or it can be some workflow, or no, it's like someone got disconnected. Yeah, hi. Is it Trupti? Mohammed? Lakshmi? Lakshmi. Okay, fine. So
Yeah.
no issues, no issues. Yeah, you can just let her. Okay. So yeah. So we'll be checking out SharePoint Designer, which is like which we'll be using across, and I'll show you different options. What exactly is there in SharePoint Designer? Yeah, and what exactly to how exactly to install SharePoint. That's why sorry, SharePoint Designer. That's why I've just opened up my Chrome too, so that I can show you so how to work with SharePoint Designer. That will be our first topic. And next, before that, we'll be learning.
Hello.
Yeah, hello Lakshmi, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, Lakshmi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, fine,
Yeah.
not a problem. Sure. Right. So before that, we have to learn something called. See, we have seen something like workflows, right? Which is director, manager, lead, and all. Now, so we have created a director, we have created a manager, we have created a lead, where we have seen something called different workflows, right? And so just to give a quick refresh on that, just a few minutes of refresh. So now from now on we'll be seeing what is a designer and how we can create different what what exactly is a designer, because it's a very important again. Let me just create info IT here. So as we have seen Infopath, right, we'll be checking out more things in Infopath, right? So we'll be creating designer, we'll be creating one Infopath, and then we'll implement something called designer, right? Where we'll see how we can actually integrate between those two. And before that, we'll see how to actually install a designer, right? It's very important. What are the different parameters you have to keep in mind when installing your designer for your SharePoint, right? We'll see that now. So property collection and info now. So anyways, so we have already seen some workflow. If you remember, we have seen some approval workflow, right? So let me just say take a category and some document category. Let me just say yeah. So here, so in library items we have seen here workflow settings, right? Where, so let me just show you where actually we have given something called usernames and all, where yeah, we have a few things here which is it all depends on the library you are using. So once we actually start, right, so okay, so what we have seen here is okay, so here you can see that your workflow will be created. So you can create any number of workflows, and main theme here is in the workflows we used to give our own usernames and different usernames, and we used to log in with different users, right? And we used to see different options like whether that guy have got permission or not and all, right? But now let us say if there is a concept of manager, if there is a concept of director, now how to create this hierarchy is important again. So this can be an administrator role, or a developer role, or sometimes even um, your I mean project guys. Even your project guys can take can will request you to explain them how to create a how to create a this level of hierarchies in SharePoint, because in SharePoint as such doesn't know who is the manager of whom and who is the director of whom, these hierarchy you have to create for them, right? So that is how you should create something. And don't worry, for each and every BU, or we say each and every business unit, right, under some big company, it will be divided into so many units, under which there will be subunits, and subunits will be some BUs, right, business units, and under business units there will be different teams, right, uh, where each and every team will have a lead, right, and all. Now, how to create that hierarchy in SharePoint, which is very important. So we'll be seeing that first, right? So for that, so that is possible only through administration, which is central administration. So in central administration, as we have seen before, we have something called managed service applications, right? Let me click on that. In this, we have seen before that there are so many services which will be running continuously, right? Where some things will be scheduled and some things will be running forever, some things will run at a particular time and all, right, which is like, that something is nothing but, let us say, there is a workflow, right, which is you have created a document, right, and the document have to be approved by someone else, right, which means there should be a continuous work or service should be running, where whenever you create a document, automatically it should fill with other name. Let us say I'm creating a document with guest 1. Let us say I have a user, right, which is guest 1, right, or guest 1, right. So we have a user, okay, anyway, so this side don't have guest 1. So let us say I'm logging with guest 1, right, and what I'll do, I'll just add a document. So which means, so that document library was actually approval based workflow is being implemented. So what happens automatically, let us say the guest 1, whatever guest 1 is added, should be approval guest 2. Now who is taking care of all those things? So whenever you add something, so some logic should be executed, right, and it should activate that workflow and should give that task to guest 2. So who is giving? So these are the services, so all these services will actually manage them. So so each and every service is for different things, like, so as we have already seen before, we have seen something called health and data is to continuously check whether your log files and your database is completely in sync or not, right. So if it is not in sync, it will, what it does is it will delete some files, or it will make your data in sync with the data whatever you are running on, right. So all these services will be running. Now way to check, again we have seen something called monitoring, right, where in monitoring what happens is, if you want to check job, this is very important. Again, here itself you can see whether the job is running or not, whether it is scheduled or not at all, right. And so here, so you can see scheduled jobs, and now so you can see here that, so whatever is a running jobs, you can see again. So why I'm showing you again and again this one is, so this is something which administrator will be touching upon every time. So every day at least once he will be touching upon this running jobs, or scheduled jobs, or timer jobs, or creating a new job, or stopping a job, right, all these things. Then, so this job, and how to stop and start a job is again manage services on server, where, so all your services will be here, and if you want to add a new service, you can add, right. You can see here, you can actually start your service, you can stop your service, right. So whenever you start or stop your service, right, it will be automatically will be sent to your monitoring service, where you can actually check whether this service is being started or not, right. Now let's go back and see what, so what we are in right now. So in this uh, managed service applications, we have something called user profile service application. So this is some application which is separate portal being given, where you can actually create your manager profile, sync something. So see, you can see manage organization profiles like admin, manager, different things you can do here. So let us today see how to create different profiles, how to create different managers, and how we can tag them to certain variables, right. Here you can see that there are already some profiles being, So this is something which is a summary. It says profiles, number of user profiles are 2. I have already created some profiles. So right, there are already 2. So user properties, what are different properties? So all the summary will be given here, right? So that is what it is. Now so let us create a simple profile now. So for that you have to go to manage user profiles. Here you can see that you have something called new profile, right, or delete or view, right? So let me just type the profile which I have created. Just created guest one, right? You can see here guest one. Let me just edit this, edit my profile. Here you can see that you can give all your details in here. Now these details are something which are nothing but your NT logins. Whatever users you have created or whatever users it is getting from some server, right, only to those servers you can create profiles, right? As our guest one is someone who is actually a user of our my machine, right? So that's why I'm able to create my guest one account. And for this account you can see there are so many different things like name, work for and all. And if you go down you can see one thing called, yeah, you can see manager option, right? Now so I said for guest one the manager is guest 2, right? And in the same way in this hierarchy, let us say there is guest 1 this right, guest 2, guest 1, admin, right? So now so guest 2, guest 1, here what we have seen is for guest 1 guest 2 is manager. Now let us say guest 2 have got again his CEO or his group manager, right? Again what you have to do, you have to create a new profile. Let us say, let me just cancel and go back. So how to create is, again create a new profile, right? So here account name, so just give guest 2, right? Let me just give something which is not there. Let me just say guest 24, right? So you can see no match found. So how, why it is no match found? Because it is not there in my registry or it is not there in my machine's registry. So that's why it will never be able to read. So that's why just take guest 1, sorry, guest 2, right? Now guest 2, so here let me just write up that so that we can just follow the same thing, right? So here my guest 1 is, let us say, team member, right, whose manager is guest 2, right? And guest 2's manager is, let us say, some person 1, right? And person 1's manager is some person 2. Let's take, just take something, right? Sorry, person 2, and so all CEO is some SAP. So simple hierarchy we have created. Now this hierarchy should be replicated here, right? Should be replicated in your SharePoint, because SharePoint doesn't know who is whom, right? It when all these guys are separate, right, it will feel that each and every person here is nothing but an end user. That's it. Unless you create some profiles and give the connection between two different users or two different roles of guys, right, it will not understand what it is. Now how? Now so first what we have seen is, we have seen something like guest 1 was the team member of guest 2. Now guest 2 became manager. Now what we want to do is, guest 2 is under person 1, which means guest 2's manager is person 1. Now how to do that is in this way. Just give guest 2 and just collect some more things, work phone, right, just web 698 something 237 and something, some phone number, right? Department, let us say IT, title just give Mr., right? And now here manager, and now again the manager is for our guest 2. So guest 2's manager is again your person 1. So let's type it out, person 1. So again all these users should be in your user profiles, right, in your machine user profiles. So unless you have this machine, you can't tag them to your manager and your end user, right? Now let's get back all these things you don't need anyways, like email and all, and just save and close, right? Now if you go to guest 1, right? Fine. You can see guest 1 here. Let me just go and see, edit my profile, and you can see guest 1 and his manager is guest 2. Now let's go back and see who is guest 2. Guest 2, right? And you can see guest 2 here being created, and edit my profile. You can see guest 2 is non-editable now. You cannot edit this, but you can edit someone called manager, right? You can anytime you can edit. Like if guest 2 gets promotion, right, which means guest 2 and person 1 are on same level, let us say, which means person 2 will be the manager of person 1 and guest 2, which means you should be able to edit your manager from one person to another person, right? Which is person 1 again, guest 2 to person 1, which is guest 2 to person 1. But now person 1 is a again, if you see it in end user, right, it is again end user whose manager is again person 2, right? So let's go back and see, save and close, create new profile. Let's say it is, so now we have to create person 1 and manager is person 2, right? Person 1, and let me just give you manager as person 2, right? Just say save and close, right? Save and close, and now you can see here it's increasing, which is number of profiles became 4 now. Now person 2 is here. Now person 2's manager is Sam, right? Which is create new profile and just say person 2 here, and his manager is Sam here, right? Let's save and close, right? So now you have created, you can see that you have created 5 profiles, right? So let me click on this for some time. Okay, we don't need subtypes in this now. Yeah, user profile service, manager profile services. Yeah, now let me just say guest 1, fine. Yeah, let me just say edit my profile. Yeah, now so we have created a hierarchy where, so we have created some relation among them. Now where does this relation work? So this relation will work in somewhere when you actually create something called workflows. Now let us say if you create some workflow, and if guest 1 is uploading some data, let us say, right, if guest 1 is uploading some data, right, so and you want his manager to approve. So in previously what we have seen is, we have seen guest 1 and guest 2, and we gave the both the names in something called our directly into our name, username, which is guest 1 and guest 2, the levels of approvals. But here what we'll say, we'll just say guest 1 and we want the approval from his manager, or if guest 2 is creating the document, he should be approved from his manager, and if this guy is there, he should be approved from this manager. So this is how the user level hierarchies will be created. And now remember guys, so this hierarchy, you may get a request to create these hierarchies, or you may have to train people how exactly to create a hierarchies in SharePoint or different user profiles. So using user profiles, you can connect different roles for different users, right? So that is how we actually create them. Now let's go back to the site again, right, which is, so we have created some info IT here, right, we have one document library here, right, which is here, and we have already seen something called workflow setting, where we have created a sample workflow which is state here. You can click up, you can see what is the workflow it is, right. Now let's go back to document library settings again, where clip and library workflows, and I'll say remove a workflow, okay. Yeah, so this state I want to remove, right, I want to remove this whole thing. Okay, now it doesn't have any workflows, right. Now you have removed the whole workflows. You can also see workflow reports. So So as of now what we have done is we have completely removed all the reports, right? So obviously we don't have anything as such, right? So let us go back and even delete this document library settings. So we'll create a fresh library using Infopath, right? Okay. So here now what we have is we have nothing here but a complete empty site, right? So we don't have any libraries or discussions now. Let's get back to Infopath now again. Which I have here Infopath designer, right? So again you have two things. So SharePoint form library, design a form. So we have already seen this, if you remember, right? Let us say IT docs something. Just remove this. Columns. Just say user. Just say text box. And just say codes. Let us just say text box again or combo box. Today we'll see different one and just say start date and here date, right? So here what we'll see, we'll just right click and combo box properties, we'll add the static ones. How to add static ones is you have to select enter choice manually, just select add, we'll see value, let me just say SharePoint, okay, add Java, okay, add let's say .NET, okay, right, and let me give field name as drop down DRP codes something, okay. So now we have added something here and start date, right? And start date at so username, let's pick up and say properties here, sorry, right click properties here and just say txt username, just a naming convention again, and start date, just say right click properties and just say date picker dt pkr start date. Now if you want to give the uh, default value, we have seen that in a value, just click on yes, right, just say insert function and you want to date and add days, so how many days you want to add. So here just say insert function, just say date time now, which is now, and I want to add, let us say 5 days later, right? So once you are done, just say verify formula, yeah, formula doesn't contain errors, just say okay, which means you can see that from today it will add 5 days from now, right? Just a default value. So we have created a simple info path. Let me just save this up, right, and let me just give it as IT courses, save, yeah, and now we have to publish. So I'm just giving a quick overview. We have already seen this, right? So we'll be creating some so now, so I want that library to come to info IT. So for that you have to copy this URL, and now you have many things here. You can send the whole thing to email or publish this anywhere in network location, right, anywhere. So let us select SharePoint, right? So here you have to mention your path where exactly you want to actually get this library, right? Just say next and give something here, remember credentials, and just say okay. Now what it does is it will now contact the site and it will get the columns and get the libraries whether there are any other libraries, right? It will name the library as we have given it as a IT courses, right? It will check whether there is already a library or there or not, right? Everything, and then it will publish. Now it will take you to whether you want it as a form library or site content type or any other. So now we obviously we want something called form library. Check it up and just say next. Yeah, now create a new library. I don't want to update, I want to create a new next. Now so what is the name? Let me just use as IT courses again, right, and just say next. Now column name. So what column names you want to show? Let us say username. I want to show username here. Okay, right? And I want to show what is the course. Okay. I want to show the start date also. Okay, right? These three I want to show next. And then yeah, it's ready to publish. It will give you the summary where to publish and what to publish, right? Yes, I want it in this thing. Let's publish. Now you can see that. So under info IT, it will publish the whole IT courses thing, and whatever form we have created, right? This form will be actually saved as a template, right? Where you can actually add this form as a web part again. Right? So I have to give my credentials again. Just say okay. So it will say publish location. So it's info IT and courses. So we're deploying this under corp IT, which is our website, and under a subsite. Yeah, done. So this is form published successfully. I just say close. Right. Now let's go back and see info IT. You can see your library will be added here, which is IT courses. Now which is ready now. Right. Now here, so you can actually now start adding. So we have already seen. So on that day, if you remember, whenever we added something called Infopath, right, it used to open separate designer for me again, right? Now what it does is, so as I am using my server now, I am not using foundation here, I am using server. So basically, whenever you add your Infopath form, right, and if that form is once deployed into server, it will actually open the complete form, this complete form in between your page itself, right? Sometimes, so sometimes if you are using foundation, it will open it in again in designer, right? Sometimes, so if you are trying, it may open in designer or it may completely open in something called a page itself, right? But both are same, not to worry. So IT courses and add document, right? It will just so this is the first time it is just loading up everything. So it will what it does, it will create each and everything, right? And it will come up with a document here.
Jana?
Yeah, Ritik?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So, what's the main purpose of creating these libraries and managing the servers?
uh, I'm sorry, what is the
What What's the main purpose of like creating these libraries and then like using the usernames and all that? What's the main role for this?
okay, what is the use of creating libraries and all, right? Okay, the main use of library is to make the document collaborated across the different user profiles, right?
Okay.
Now first thing is, why do we need library? Is we need to create a workflow, right? If you want to create a workflow, like if you want to make sure the document which whatsoever is flowing should be approved from some hierarchical members, right? You should have some workflow. And now in order to have a workflow, you should have some list or library, am I right? Without having some document or without having some tabular form, how can you make a how can you add a document, or how can you make it as a workflow, right? So all are interconnected.
Right.
In order to create a collaborative environment, right, you need all these components like list or a library or a web part or a workflow, right, or a user. So why we create this user hierarchy is, like, if you don't want to hard code anything, So now whenever you created something called workflow, right? So if you don't want to hard
Right.
code something, what we'll do, that's why we have created something called the different hierarchies, where we have mentioned the manager of different, and in real time you'll never hard code, you will actually give permission like this, right? So these things will be actually there are different group of people who will be doing all these things. The first group is administrator will give this group, and second thing is if SharePoint developer is in the same team, the developer will take care of these things. And in third thing, which is mostly being done, is by the manager of each team. So what you'll do, you'll just train the manager, right? So how, so you'll just give an access to one, I mean the particular admin page, wherever he can add the different user profiles. So what he'll do, he'll just take up that, right? And he will start creating this hierarchy, right?
Right.
So that's how it goes actually. So that is why it is all low. The whole complete usage of your SharePoint is to create a collaborative environment, and these everything whatever we are learning is the different ways how to create a collaborative environment. Like library is there, if you don't want to give the page of that library to someone, right, you are blocking it. Why you are blocking is something, instead of you wanted to save some document and you don't want to show the document to other part of team, right? Which means you are actually hiding some data from other people. So how we are doing that, we are doing that using SharePoint. Fine. Yeah. So here let me just add from Chrome here. So Chrome will be much faster. Come on. Okay. So till then, okay, it is still loading. It seems. Let it load. Yeah. So I was talking about something called library designer, right? So let me just give you a introduction to the designer till this page is loaded, right? So let's take up this. So let me just take a new one. Now in this info IT, right? Or let's go back to corp IT and just say new site. Let me just say the new site here, which is uh, shared designer site. Create. Yes, right. You have a shared designer site here. Corp IT. Go back to this. Yeah. So now here, let me just create a library here. Create. Let me just say library and just say some document library, some shared docs, more options, and yeah, create. Yeah. So here, so actually till now what we have seen is we have seen something to create direct workflow, right? So if you can see, you have some option here to create a workflow using a designer. Anyways, once this gets open, okay, fine. So it got open here. Now you can see, okay, so why we are not able to see the designer here, right? Like the colored one is, it's a Chrome actually, right? So that's why it didn't load it perfectly. Okay, it is loading here. So till it loads, right, let me just take up this, right? Which is, yeah. So I'll just add one. So I'll just give user as some user one, right? Course content type, you can see that, right? It added, so whatever we added, right, dynamic statically, it added everything. Let me just say SharePoint, right? And you can see here, so date, so today's date is 6th, right? It added some 5 days, we gave 5, right? It added 5 days and it displayed it here. We just gave some formula. So let us say if you want to change your date component, you can just say 14th, right? And just say save, right? So sending server, you have to give the file name. Let me give just file 1. Let me just save. So it is saved, and close it up here. Now you can see, yeah, your file got saved. So this is how we actually create something called Infopath, because on that day it was there was some scramble thing been happening because of my, it was running slow, right? So that's why. Okay, let's get back here to IT and just see the Infopath there now. So IT courses, you can see one file been added now. So anyways, this till here we have already seen. So if you want to add more documents, right, obviously you can actually go to add document, right? Let me just see whether it loads. Oh, my Internet Explorer is kidding. Okay, cool. So for Chrome it's faster. Let me just say user to select type. Let me just say you can just say Java and allow. So here let me just take 16th here, right? And save. I want to give file name file2, save, right? So close it here. You can see file2. Let's get back here. So my eye is a bit slow. Let us just not waste the time here. Yeah. Now, okay. So your files are ready now here. So now the basically the main thing what we are checking out here is, so how to create a workflow or some users here where using something called SharePoint Designer, and SharePoint Designer is used for many things. So now we'll see how to create a workflow now, right? Now let me go to library for that, because I have to create a workflow for my library, which is IT courses. So in here you can see edit library, right? So this is also, if you directly click on edit library, it will again open something called your SharePoint Designer, where you can actually edit your direct view of your library, right? So before that, let's go back to workflow settings. I have something called create a workflow in SharePoint Designer, right? Let me just click on that. So this won't come with your Microsoft Office. You have to install this. So how to install, I'll show you, right? How to install and what exactly the bit version you have to select, I'll show you completely, right? Let me just open that up first, and I'll show you that. Yeah, this is your SharePoint Designer. Yeah, so what it does is it will completely get your site into its cache, and whatever you do here in SharePoint Designer will be uploaded automatically. So we have seen till now, we have seen something called Excel, we have seen something called Word, right? Microsoft Word to create a direct blocks, and we have seen something called Infopath, where we actually created a form. Now this is your website, SharePoint Designer. So here it is asking create a list workflow IT courses. So what is the workflow name? Let me just give IT workflow something, right? IT workflow. Just say okay. Fine. So now till this part is something which we are creating some workflow. Now you can see here it starts with steps. So steps here, so you can see it has got workflows, and you can actually create multiple steps whatever you want. Now before moving into it, now basically if you see, you will not be having this designer actually. That's why I'll show you how to actually install that. Now so let me just go back here to info IT and just see whether it is there here or not. Let me just go to library, workflow settings and designer. Perfect. Yeah. So here you can see, so if you don't have your SharePoint Designer, right? If you don't have your SharePoint Designer, once you go to even if you edit library or do anything, if you want to open up anything with your SharePoint Designer, right? What it will do, it will just check whether this browser is actually enabled with your designer or not. Basically in my local PC I have my SharePoint Designer, right? is already been installed, but my browser is this browser is not able to detect that. So for that, what you have to do, you have to install your own client based SharePoint designer. Now here you can see very important one, which version, or sorry, which bit type to install. This is very important. If you have Microsoft Office of 32-bit, you should always install 32-bit of SharePoint designer, otherwise it will never be compatible with your SharePoint. And again same case with 64. Now the question is, so how do I know uh, which version of, or which bit type of uh, you know Microsoft Office is being installed? So which is this? Like, if you want to know this Microsoft Office, so what is the basic bit type you have used? So let me just open a Microsoft Word. You can open anyone, any of them. Let me just take up Microsoft Word, click on that, right? So yeah, so I'm just showing you where to check this thing, where to get the answer for which one to install. So now whenever you are practicing with this video, right, so obviously you will get this because you haven't installed this, right? And whenever you install this, automatically it will tie up with your SharePoint, not to worry. But which one to select is this. So check your open any of the my office product, which is, let us open a Microsoft Word and go to file. In file, uh, you have something called help. Yeah, now, yeah, perfect. Here you can see version, right? Here you can see that which bit type you have. So here I have 32-bit of my office, which is Microsoft Office. So this help is common, even if you go and open something else. Let me just check once. And Excel, right? Go to file and just say help. Yeah, because it's the same thing. So this window will be same. If you can see, both the windows is Microsoft Word and Excel, because this represents which version you are using and what is the type of your what bit type of your office is being used. Because based on these bit types, right, you have to select your bit type, either 64 or 32, and then free download. So once you download and install, do always do one thing. Once you install something, so before opening up everything, right, just close all the browsers whatever you have, just do once IIS reset, right, and then open your site. So once you open your site in that way, then you will be able to see your designer, right? This will be your designer. So, and this designer is used for many things. You can see here, I'm sorry, my bad. So info IT is nothing but my site here, which is, let me just go back and see info IT, right? Info IT is my site. So here in designer, what it does is it will take the each and every component of your info IT. Now, so here, so you can see list and libraries, right? Let me click on this. You can see IT courses, which is already here. It will be automatically detected. Let me just create one list here and see what happens. Let me go to more options, right? Your document library, I'm sorry, your SharePoint designer is again a tightly coupled one. Let me just create something called some tasks, which is list task, or task will again give you something. Okay, let me just give you custom list IT options, and just say create. Yeah. Now under list I have one list, right? So let me just go back to info IT here, and you can see under libraries you have IT courses, and under this you have list ITs. Now let's go back to SharePoint designer. So let's click on something, and here, so again you can see the same. So just you have something called refresh button. Click on refresh. So what it does is, you can see here, it will communicate, it will get your lists again, which is again it is tightly coupled with your SharePoint. Whatever database you have, right, you can directly connect to that, right? Or you can also create a list here. Let me just click on this and just say lists here. Just let me just have custom list, and just say lists custom something and add. Once you add this, right, your list got added, right? List got added. Let me just go back here and see, refresh. You can see this custom where your custom list being added with default columns. Go back and see list settings, right? You can see the columns here, and if you want to add anything, you can create column anytime. So what it does is whatever you add here will be directly reflected to your list custom. Let me just click on here. You can see so what I have done is in list and libraries I have clicked on this list custom, right? In list custom you can see everything, like what exactly where you can see here come on. Yeah, where exactly is it? So this list custom is actually deployed in something called info IT lists under lists, where if you come back to your here lists, you can see info IT all site content, and under lists we have something called your list custom. The same thing will be shown here, right, which is under libraries we have this, right? So that's how it is work. Now let's go back to workflows. Now workflows we haven't created any because there are no workflows as such now. That's why you can't see anything. Now site pages, right? And in under site pages, right, we have created something called sites and not site pages. If you create any site, right, it will get to you. So we'll see different things like site columns, master pages, right, once we are done with these things, right, not to worry now. So that is nothing but your let me just, you can just right click and close this, right click and close, you can see right click and close. Okay, I'm just keeping my one workflow here now. So this is a workflow, so for which it is we are working for this is, so whatever are there under this libraries, right, this workflow will apply to that. Now here, so this is a workflow area. Now in this workflow area there are few things which are very important, which is these three things: your condition, action and step. Your step is nothing but, see, this is step 1, I can create step 2, I can create step 3, step 4, right, or I can create. So this cursor, whatever you are seeing here, right, can you see this is blinking, right? That is just blinking, which means whatever you do will be done there. Let me just select this and click. You can see sub step is being created. Inside this step, some more step. Inside this step, one more step. And if 6 is there, right, click on this inside this. So this is how you can create multiple steps. These are nothing but steps, which is first step is that user 1 should approve, second step is user 2 should approve, user 3. So these are different workflows which we can create. So if you want to delete, select that, delete, select, delete, select, delete, right? That is nothing but your how to create different steps. Now what are the actions? So actions you can see, so this is the main part where, so what do you want to do is your action part. Whether you want to add a command, log a history list, right, stop workflow, right, or some do calculation or check in item, whatever. Though that is nothing but your action. And your condition. Condition is the nothing but, again, if this is this, do this or do that, right? So now let us write a simple one. So here you can see here, start typing and use insert group in the ribbon, which means, see, based on your mouse pointer, this is blinking here, which means whatever you do will be done at that point. I just started typing, it just took, but there is no use of typing or doing something out of this flows, right? Let me just press on escape, right, it will go. Now first you have to make sure that your line or your cursor is blinking on the step. Click on that. Now, so what you can do here, so there are so many things like, in action there are so many things like log to history, lookup, add a comment and all, right? So based on this, if you just type the starting word, it will allow you to complete it. Now let us start type, let's say log. Here you can see plus enter to log to history list. You can see log this message to workflow. Let me click on this and just say workflow started, right? So now we have added a first step. So inside that, So once you add something, right, it seems workflow started. Now inside that, let me just type in something, which is I want to add a manager now. So here we'll see how to add a manager. So till now what we have seen is we have seen something called end user. So now we'll add a manager. So how to add a manager? Just click on this. You can see something like look relational actions. Relational actions. You have something called lookup manager of a user. Now lookup is something which is a keyword. If you just start something LOK, right? See here says press enter to insert lookup manager. Click on enter. Find the manager of. So whose manager? So the manager should be of the user whoever is logged in. Let us say the user logged in is guest one here. Now this is how it gets. Now if so there is no, okay, let me just give the permission to these guys because we have to see corp IT connection, site permissions, right, and corp IT members, and again your actual members who are managed, right, should be at least a member, right? So new, let me add a couple of users here, which is guest one, right? You can add directly all the users with semicolon, sorry, guest two, oops, right? Why I'm not using guest is actually guest is disabled in my machine, and just say person one and person two, right, and Sam. So these are the users who are public. Okay, and you can see all the members being added, and go back and see, go back to site. Yeah, guest one is added, which means whenever we do something to some flow, right, which means, so guest one have added something, so guest one's manager is nothing but this. Find the manager of this user. What is this? Click on this and say user who created the current item. It will automatically take the user, or if you want to mention something, yeah, you can see here all the user accounts will be automatically added here, right? You say corp IT members, each and every corp IT member is a manager, or admin is a manager, guest one is a manager. But here we don't want to hard code anyone, right? We don't want to hard code, but what we want to do, whoever is a user created, I want to get that guy's manager. That's why we just say no, one second. We just said, yeah, user who created current item. Let's say okay, right? We'll see here manager of current item created by. So if I create something called a document by user guest one, it says the manager of this, right? That is what. And then we'll just log something and just say manager or completed by manager, and okay, let me just cut it up, and you can see something called display here, right? Just say completed by manager, and I want to add the manager, so change add and change lookup. Here you can see current item, just say workflow variables and parameters, and here you can see variable manager, right? Because under this guy I want to get the manager parameter. So how I'm getting this is nothing but, so we have added something called user profiles, right? In user profiles we have different user profile service application, manage user, right? Let me just say guest one, so find, yeah, hello, hello.